The silver ships of the Galactic Coalition surrounded the beautiful world of Lysera like metal vultures waiting for death. Commander Velthara pressed her pale hand against the cold window of her dying vessel and watched her home burn below. Orange flames danced across the crystal cities where her people had lived in peace for thousands of years. "They are destroying everything," whispered healer Morden from behind her. His skin, once bright with healing light, now flickered weakly like a candle in the wind. The hospitals, the schools, even the memory gardens. Velthara closed her eyes and felt the pain of her dying world wash over her. This was her curse and her gift. Every Kithara could feel the suffering of others as if it were their own. Right now, she felt the terror of millions of her people as coalition soldiers forced them from their homes at gunpoint. The plague had started 6 months ago. No one knew where it came from or how it spread so quickly. It killed fast and without mercy, turning healthy beings into corpses in just days. 7 worlds had fallen silent, their populations wiped out completely. Billions of lives lost to an enemy no one could see or fight. But fear needed a face, and the coalition had chosen the Kithara. "It makes sense to blame us," Morden said sadly, reading her thoughts as all her people could. "We travel between worlds as healers. We touch the sick and dying. Of course they think we spread the disease. Even though we die from it too," Velthara replied. "Even though we have tried to heal those affected. Logic means nothing when people are afraid." The communication system crackled to life. The voice that came through was cold and filled with hate. "Attention, disease carriers. By order of the High Council, your species is found guilty of crimes against all civilized life. You will be removed from Coalition space immediately. Any attempt to return will result in your complete destruction." Velthara looked around the bridge of her ship. Only 12 of her crew remained alive. The rest had died from the plague or from Coalition attacks during their escape. Her ship was one of only 5 vessels that had managed to flee Lysera before the blockade was complete. Less than 300 Kithara remained alive in the entire galaxy. "Where can we go?" asked young Rindar, barely more than a child. "Every world in Coalition space is forbidden to us. They shoot our ships on sight." "The Outer Rim," Velthara decided. "Beyond Coalition territory. Perhaps we can find some empty world where we can live in peace." But even as she said it, she knew it was probably a lie. Their ships were damaged and running out of power. Their medical supplies were almost gone, and more of her people were dying every day. They were healers by nature, meant to help others, not to survive alone in the cold emptiness of space. The young ones looked at her with hope in their large, dark eyes. They trusted her to save them, just as her people had always trusted their leaders. But what could she do? She was a healer, not a warrior. She had spent her life learning to mend broken bones and cure diseases, not to fight wars or find new homes for refugees. "Commander," called out Navigator Kestiche from her station. "The Coalition ships are moving. They are forming an attack pattern." "They mean to finish us here," Morden said quietly. "They do not want us to escape and spread their imagined plague to other worlds." Velthara felt the fear of her people like ice in her veins. 300 souls, all that remained of a species that had spent millennia bringing healing to the galaxy. Soon they would be nothing more than space dust and fading memories. "All ships, prepare for emergency jump," she ordered. "Set course for the Galactic Rim. We will find somewhere to die with dignity." The jump engines whined as they powered up. The ships were so badly damaged that Velthara was not sure they would survive the journey through hyperspace. But staying meant certain death, while jumping at least offered a small chance of survival. "Jumping now," Kestiache reported. The stars stretched into lines of light, and then everything went black. When Velthara woke up, she was lying on the floor of the bridge. Emergency lights cast red shadows across the walls, and she could hear the hiss of escaping air somewhere in the ship. "Report," she croaked, pulling herself back to her feet. "We made it," Kestiche said, but her voice was weak. "2 of our ships did not survive the jump. We are down to 3 vessels and about 200 people." "And where are we?" "Unknown space, Commander. Far beyond the Coalition border. There is a star system nearby. It has several worlds, but our senses cannot tell if they are inhabited." Velthara nodded slowly. They had escaped the Coalition, but now they faced a different kind of death. Slow starvation in unknown space, far from any help or hope. She looked at the faces of her surviving people and tried to find some words of comfort. Instead, she found only silence and the growing certainty that the Kithara race would end here, forgotten and alone. Dr. Minute Kim was drinking his 3rd cup of coffee when the alarm started screaming. He jumped up from his desk at Earth Defense Station Alpha, sending papers flying everywhere. The night shift was supposed to be quiet, but the massive screens around him were now flashing red with warnings. "What is it?" he called out to Lieutenant So-Young Park, who was running her hands over the control panels like a pianist playing a desperate song. "Unknown contact coming in fast," she replied without looking up. "3 ships, badly damaged. They just appeared out of nowhere near Jupiter's orbit." Minute-Ho rushed to the main scanner and felt his mouth drop open. The ships on the screen looked like nothing he had ever seen before. They were beautiful and strange, with smooth curves that reminded him of seashells mixed with crystal formations. But they were also clearly dying. Pieces were falling off them, and he could see atmosphere leaking out in thin streams. "Are they hostile?" So-Young asked, her finger hovering over the alarm button that would wake up the entire Earth Defense Force. "I do not think so," Minute-Ho said slowly. "Look at them. They can barely fly. If they wanted to attack us, they would have done it already." The communication system crackled with static, and then a voice came through. It was weak and filled with pain, speaking in broken standard galactic language. "Please, we seek help. Our people are dying. We have nowhere else to go." So-Young and Minute-Ho looked at each other. First contact with aliens was supposed to happen with lots of preparation and important people making speeches. It was not supposed to happen during the night shift with just 2 tired humans and some coffee. "This is Earth Defense Station Alpha," Minute-Ho said into his microphone. "We hear you. Can you tell us who you are?" "We are Kithara. We are healers. We were cast out from our home. Please, we need sanctuary." The word healers caught Minute-Ho's attention. These beings were asking for help, not offering threats. "Can your ships make it to Earth orbit?" he asked. "We will try." It took 6 hours for the alien ships to limp their way to Earth. By then, half the government was awake and arguing about what to do. Some people wanted to shoot the ships down before they could land. Others wanted to capture the aliens and study them. But Dr. Haijin Lee, Earth's best expert on alien life, had a different idea. "Let me talk to them," she said to the crowd of officials gathered in the emergency meeting room. "If they really are healers, maybe we can help each other." When the largest alien ship finally docked at the space station, Minute-Ho was amazed by what he saw. The beings that came out were tall and thin, with pale skin that seemed to glow with its own soft light. They moved like dancers, but they were clearly very sick. Some of them could barely walk. The one in front, who called herself Commander Velthara, spoke to Dr. Haijin in careful English. "We thank you for allowing us to dock. We know you have no reason to trust us. Why were you cast out?" Haijin asked gently. Velthara's large dark eyes filled with tears. "There was a plague. It killed billions across many worlds. My people travel as healers between stars. When the plague spread, everyone blamed us. They said we carried the disease. They destroyed our home and hunted us across space." "But you are healers," Minute-Ho said. "Surely you tried to stop the plague." "We tried everything," replied the alien they called Mordin. "Many of my people died trying to cure the sick. But fear is stronger than truth. The coalition needed someone to blame. That was when everything changed. A worker on the space station, a man named Jeho who helped fix broken equipment, suddenly collapsed. He had been fighting cancer for months, and the doctors had told him there was nothing more they could do. He was dying. "Please," Jeho's wife cried to anyone who would listen. "Someone help him." Mordin looked at Commander Velthara, who nodded slowly. The alien healer knelt beside the dying human and placed his glowing hands on Jeho's chest. His skin became brighter, and Minute-Ho could feel something like warm electricity in the air. When Mordin took his hands away, Jeho sat up. The pain was gone from his face, and when the doctors scanned him later, they found no trace of cancer anywhere in his body. The room went completely silent. "This is what we do," Velthara said quietly. "We heal. We feel the pain of others and take it away. It is our nature. We could never cause a plague. We can only cure." Dr. Haijin Lee was the first to speak. "How many of you are left?" "Less than 200, Velthara replied. "We are the last of our kind." Haijin looked around the room at all the government officials and military officers. Then she made the decision that would change human history forever. "Then you will stay here," she announced. "Earth offers you sanctuary. You will be our guests and our partners. And anyone who tries to harm you will have to go through us first." Some people in the room started to argue, but Minute-Ho was watching Jeho hug his wife with tears of joy streaming down both their faces. These aliens were not conquerors or threats. They were refugees who could perform miracles. Humanity had just gained some very special new family members. 2 years had passed since the Kithra arrived, and Dr. Jinwoo Nam still could not believe what he was seeing. He stood in the main healing center in Seoul, watching as his partner Rinda worked on a patient who should have been dead 3 days ago. The man on the table had been in a terrible car accident. His spine was broken in 4 places, his brain was swelling, and his heart had stopped twice. Every human doctor had given up hope, but Rinda simply placed his glowing hands on the man's forehead and began to work. "I can feel where the damage is," Rinda explained as his skin grew brighter. "The pain calls to me like a voice in the darkness. I just have to follow it and make it quiet." Jinwoo watched in amazement as the monitors showed the man's broken bones knitting back together. The swelling in his brain went down, and his heartbeat became strong and steady. Within an hour, the man was sitting up and asking for water. "How do you do it?" Jinwoo asked, "Just like he did every day." "I told you before," Rinda replied with what Jinwoo had learned was the Kithra version of a smile. "We feel pain. All pain, everywhere. It hurts us to leave suffering unhealed. But your people fascinate us more than our abilities fascinate you." "What do you mean?" "Yesterday, I watched Lieutenant Suminit train with healer warriors," Rinda said. "She volunteered to learn our combat techniques, even though she did not have to. She said any human soldier would do the same to protect their alien friends. In all our travels across the galaxy, we have never met a species that fights so hard for people who are not their own blood." Jinwoo nodded. He had heard similar stories from other humans working with Kithra partners. Lieutenant Suminit Kang was not special in her willingness to help. She was just being human. Suminit was, at that very moment, training in the military base outside the city. She moved through the obstacle course while her partner, a Kithra warrior named Veldin, sat perfectly still with his eyes closed. "3 enemies behind the wall to your left," Veldin whispered into her earpiece. "They are nervous. One of them has a hurt shoulder from training yesterday." Suminit rolled behind cover just as practice bullets flew over her head. She could always trust Veldin's empathic senses. He could feel the emotions and physical pain of everyone within a kilometer, making him the perfect scout. "2 more coming from your right," he warned. "They are confident. Probably planning an ambush." Suminit smiled and pulled out her practice grenades. The enemy soldiers never knew what hit them. When the exercise was over, the instructor shook his head in amazement. "Perfect score again," he announced. "The human Kithra teams are getting results we never thought possible." But the real magic was not happening in the hospitals or the military bases. It was happening in the schools and homes where human and Kithra children played together. In the new Seoul Community Center, 8-year-old Tae-young was teaching his new friend Suthara how to play soccer. Suthara was only 6 years old and had skin that glowed soft blue when she was happy. "Kick the ball with the inside of your foot," Tae-young explained patiently. "Not the toe. The inside is better for control." Suthara tried again and managed to kick the ball in the right direction. Her skin glowed brighter with excitement, and all the other children cheered. "I did it," she said in perfect Korean. All the young Kithra had learned human languages incredibly fast. "Did you see, Tae-young? I kicked it right." "You are getting really good," Tae-young replied. Then he lowered his voice. "Suthara, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you miss your old home? The planet where your people used to live?" Suthara thought for a moment, her skin dimming slightly. "Sometimes I remember the crystal gardens where I was born. They were very beautiful. But I was scared there at the end. There were explosions and people screaming." She looked around at all the human and Kithra children playing together. "Here is different. Here feels safe. And you are my best friend. I never had a best friend before." Tae-young grinned. "My mom says you and your family are part of our family now. She says that is what humans do. We adopt people who need homes." "Adopt means to choose as family, right?" Suthara asked. "Exactly. Blood families are who you are born with. Chosen families are who you decide to love." Meanwhile, in the government buildings downtown, Ambassador Sung Ho-yoon was meeting with Master Healer Velthara to discuss the latest requests for help. 12 different alien species had sent secret messages to Earth, asking if humans would offer them the same protection they had given the Kithra. "The Veltar are being forced to give up their children as soldiers," Velthara explained. "The Mindorian collective is being used as slave labor in the coalition mines. They have all heard stories about how humans protect those they care about." Sung Ho rubbed his tired eyes. 2 years ago, humanity had been alone in the galaxy. Now they were becoming the center of an underground network of oppressed species looking for hope. Can we help them all? He asked. Not alone, Velthara replied. But humans and Kithra together are stronger than either species apart. Your technology and our healing abilities. Your courage and our empathy. Your fierce loyalty and our wisdom. She paused and looked out the window at the city below, where humans and Kithra lived and worked side by side. The Coalition taught us that fear makes people cruel, she said quietly. But you have taught us something more important. Love makes people brave. Admiral Kestar stood on the bridge of his massive warship and stared at the small blue planet ahead of him. Earth looked so peaceful from space, with its white clouds and green continents. It was hard to believe that this tiny world had dared to challenge the mighty Galactic Coalition. Sensors show unusual defensive platforms around the planet, his tactical officer reported. The technology appears to be a mix of human engineering and Kithra biotechnology. Kestar laughed coldly. Primitive humans playing with alien toys. Do they really think a few borrowed gadgets can stop the Coalition fleet? He had brought 50 of the Coalition's best warships to deal with this problem. The humans had harbored the disease-carrying Kithra for 2 years now, and the Coalition could not allow this infection to spread to other worlds. Today, he would teach the galaxy what happened to species that defied Coalition law. Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the planet, the communications officer announced. Put it on screen, Kestar ordered. The face that appeared was that of a middle-aged human man in a military uniform. His name, according to the intelligence files, was Admiral Youngsu Park. He had been a simple space traffic controller before the aliens arrived, but now he commanded something called the Terran Defense Force. Coalition vessels, this is Admiral Park, the human said calmly. You are not welcome in this system. Turn around and leave immediately, or face the consequences. Kestar's officers laughed at the human's boldness. 50 Coalition warships against whatever pathetic defense force Earth could put together? It would be over in minutes. Human, Kestar replied with amusement, you harbor the plague carriers who murdered billions of innocent beings. Surrender them to us now, and we might let your world survive. Admiral Park's expression did not change. The Kithra are under Earth's protection. They are our family now. And humans protect their family. The word family translated strangely in the Coalition database. Most species used it only for blood relatives, but humans seemed to apply it to anyone they cared about. Kestar found this concept both puzzling and weak. Your last chance, human, he warned. Give us the disease carriers, or watch your world burn. My answer is no, Park replied simply. Come and take them if you can. The transmission ended, and Kestar turned to his weapons officer. Open fire. Target their orbital platforms first, then the major cities. Make this quick. The Coalition fleet unleashed a barrage of plasma fire that should have destroyed Earth's defenses in seconds. But something impossible happened. The defensive platforms absorbed the attack and fired back with weapons that cut through Coalition shields like they were made of paper. How is this possible? Kestar demanded as his flagship shook under enemy fire. The platforms are using some kind of predictive targeting system, his tactical officer reported with panic in his voice. They know where we are going to move before we move there. What Kestar did not know was that each human ship had a Kithra partner aboard. The alien empaths could sense the emotions and intentions of the Coalition crews, allowing the human pilots to anticipate every attack and maneuver. Captain Donghyun Lee piloted his fighter through the space battle with his Kithra partner Suthara sitting behind him. Her skin glowed bright blue as she concentrated on the enemy ships. The big one on the left is about to fire missiles, she warned. The pilot is feeling confident and excited. He thinks he has you trapped. Donghyun smiled and rolled his fighter just as a spread of missiles flew through the space where he had been. Thanks, Suthara. Where should I hit him? The captain is worried about his engine room, she replied. There is fear there. Something is wrong with their main reactor. Donghyun aimed for the rear of the enemy ship and fired. The Coalition vessel exploded in a brilliant flash of light. All across the battle zone, the same scene was playing out. Human pilots guided by Kithra empaths struck with impossible accuracy while Coalition forces found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to read their minds. But the most shocking moment came when Coalition Marines tried to board a human ship. They expected to find frightened civilians and helpless aliens. Instead, they faced something that would haunt their nightmares forever. Sergeant Duyun Kim was defending the medical bay when the enemy soldiers broke through. Behind him, Healer Mordin was tending to wounded human fighters, keeping them in the battle with his healing touch. Surrender, human, the Coalition squad leader demanded. You cannot win. Duyun looked at the young Kithara child hiding behind Mordin, then at his wounded comrades getting back on their feet thanks to the healer's power. These aliens were not just allies. They were family. No, he said simply, and opened fire. The Coalition Marines had fought many battles, but they had never faced an enemy like this. Humans fought with a fury they did not understand, protecting their alien friends with a devotion that seemed almost religious. And the Kithara healers kept the human soldiers fighting even when they should have been dead from their wounds. When the Coalition boarding party retreated in panic, Duyun helped carry a wounded Kithara child to safety while still firing his weapon one-handed. The image was captured by security cameras and later broadcast across Coalition space. By the end of the day, Admiral Kestar's mighty fleet was limping away from Earth orbit. Half his ships were destroyed or crippled, and his crew was demoralized by their stunning defeat. "Send a message to Coalition High Command," he ordered grimly. "Tell them we need everything they have. The humans have made themselves our enemy, and they fight like demons when protecting those disease carriers." What Kestar did not understand was that he had just learned the most important rule about humanity: never threaten their family. The Coalition Armada that arrived at Sol System 3 months later was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Over 500 warships from dozens of species filled the space around Earth like a metal storm cloud. Every major Coalition world had contributed their best vessels and most experienced crews. Admiral Kestar stood on his new flagship and smiled coldly at the small blue planet ahead. This time, there would be no mistakes. This time, the humans would learn what happened to primitives who defied the galaxy's rightful rulers. "Admiral," his sensor officer called out, "we are detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. The humans have built something." Kestar moved to the tactical display and felt his confidence waver. The space around Earth was not empty anymore. Huge defensive stations floated in perfect formation, connected by streams of energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. They looked alive, grown rather than built, and they hummed with power that made his instruments scream warnings. "Still just humans playing with alien toys," he muttered, but his voice lacked the certainty it had held before. On Earth, in the command center deep beneath Sol, Admiral Young-Soo Park watched the enemy fleet approach. Around him, human officers worked side by side with Kithara advisors whose skin glowed with concentration. 537 ships, reported Lieutenant Yoon by Moon, her voice steady despite the impossible odds. "They have brought everything they have." Beside her, Healer Navigator Suthara closed her large dark eyes and reached out with her empathic senses. "I can feel their emotions from here," she whispered. "Fear. Anger. Pride. They think they have already won." Young-Soo nodded grimly. The past 3 months had been spent in frantic preparation. Every human ship now carried a Kithara partner. Every defensive station was operated by mixed crews who could coordinate their actions through empathic links. And most importantly, word of the Coalition's planned attack had spread to other oppressed species throughout the galaxy. "Incoming transmission from the Coalition flagship," the communications officer announced. Young-Soo straightened his uniform. "Put it through." Admiral Kestar's face appeared on the main screen, twisted with hatred and contempt. "Human, you see the force we have brought against you. 500 warships from 20 different worlds. Your pathetic planet cannot stand against us." "We stood against you before," Young-Soo replied calmly. "That was a scouting force," Kestar snarled. "This is the full might of the Coalition. Surrender the disease carriers now, and we will make your deaths quick." Young-Soo felt the quiet presence of Master Healer Velthara beside him. Over the past 2 years, she had become more than an ally. She was family, just like all the Kithara who had made Earth their home. "The Kithara are not disease carriers," he said firmly. "They are healers. They are our friends. They are our family. And we will never surrender them to you." "Then you will all die together," Kestar declared, and cut the transmission. The Coalition attack began with a wave of destruction that should have turned Earth into a lifeless rock. Thousands of missiles and energy beams converged on the planet, enough firepower to crack continents and boil oceans. Instead, the hybrid human Kithara shields absorbed the attack and converted it into power for their own weapons. The defensive stations opened fire with beams of pure energy that cut through Coalition formations like swords through paper. Captain Donghyun Lee launched from the carrier Indomitable with his partner Suthara guiding him through the chaos of battle. Around them flew hundreds of other human fighters, each one paired with a Kithara navigator who could sense enemy intentions before they were even formed. "Big ship coming up behind us," Suthara warned, her skin blazing with blue light. "The pilot is very confident. He thinks he has us trapped." "Let's show him how wrong he is," Donghyun replied, spinning his fighter in a move that should have been impossible. The coalition pilot fired where Donghyun should have been, but the human ship was already gone, looping around to strike at the enemy's weak point. The alien vessel exploded in silence. But the real shock came when coalition ground troops managed to land on Earth's surface. They expected to find a world in panic, with frightened humans cowering behind their alien protectors. Instead, they found something that would become legend throughout the galaxy. Sergeant Dooyoon Kim was defending a refugee center where human and Kithra families had gathered for safety. When coalition soldiers stormed the building, they found him carrying a wounded Kithra child in one arm while firing his weapon with the other. "Stand down, human," the enemy commander shouted. "You cannot protect them all." Dooyoon looked at the faces around him. Human children holding hands with young Kithra. Elderly humans being healed by grateful alien medics. Families that had been formed not by blood, but by choice and love. "Watch me," he said, and kept fighting. The image of that human soldier, protecting an alien child with his life, spread across the galaxy faster than any news report. Other oppressed species saw it and understood. This was what humanity meant when they talked about family. The battle raged for 3 days. Coalition forces threw everything they had at Earth, but they could not break the bond between humans and Kithra. Every time human soldiers fell, Kithra healers brought them back into the fight. Every time the aliens were threatened, humans threw themselves into harm's way to protect them. On the 4th day, something unprecedented happened. Ships began arriving from across the galaxy. The Veltar, who had been enslaved as soldiers, turned their weapons on their coalition masters. The Mindorian collective broke free from their mining worlds and joined the battle. Dozens of other species rose up in rebellion, inspired by humanity's example. The coalition fleet found itself surrounded not by one small world, but by an alliance of every species they had ever oppressed. Admiral Kestar watched his mighty armada crumble around him and finally understood his mistake. He had thought the humans were protecting the Kithra out of simple kindness. He had not realized that kindness, when backed by courage and determination, was the most powerful force in the galaxy. When the surviving coalition ships limped away from Earth, they carried with them a warning that would echo through space for generations: never threaten those under human protection. The pack defends its own, and humans never forget their family.